If the 10 is the Christian Prince theocracy,
Yeah.
where would Charlie be on that 0 to 10 scale?
I think we're definitely in the 7/8s.
7, 8's here.
I think so.
You live nearby, or you fly in for this?
New Jersey.
New Jersey, wow.
I was in Punta Cana this week for my wife's surprise 30th birthday party. I planned the trip in February. And I landed back in Newark, New Jersey on Friday night, and I flew out yesterday to get here. I'm just so committed.
Wow. Committed to everything Charlie Kirk is doing and Turning Point and all that? Or,
No, I'm committed to the opposite.
Oh, you're committed to the opposite?
The opposite, yeah. This is for research.
Research?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Sweet. That's fascinating. What are you doing? So you're researching conservatives?
No, I grew up conservative.
Okay.
I was homeschooled for 9 years, grew up very fundamentalist Christian, still a Christian, but over time I shifted a lot of my views to what now would be called more progressive Christianity, even though I never used that label. So it's not a label I like using, but for sake of this conversation, it will give whoever's watching this at some point some kind of idea, because obviously we're at Turning Point, which would be the opposite of that.
Yeah. To put my cards on the table, I'm also like a secular, liberal, humanist, atheist. So
we're going to get along great, you and me.
I'm sure we'll just have a casual chat within the AmericaFest crowd.
Did you watch the Ben Shapiro debate? What was the other person's name who debated him? He's a secular atheist. It was on. It just came out a couple weeks ago.
Alex
O'Connor.
O'Connor. Yeah.
Did you watch that?
Yeah.
What'd you think?
Great.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, loved it.
I honestly saw. I mean, what was interesting to me was that. If I'm talking too loud, by the way, let me know. I can back this thing up. I talk loud when I'm podcasting.
It's fine.
I had two takeaways, and I would love to hear yours.
Sure.
The first takeaway I had was, can I curse on this thing? Am I allowed to curse? Right. Who the hell is this Ben Shapiro? Because the Ben Shapiro that I have followed for years is not like this Ben Shapiro, which drove me crazy, because he's capable of having a really good faith dialogue and giving and taking.
It's not on a college campus on a podium.
Exactly.
You can be good faith. That's
right. And I also thought that Alex was strongest pointing out the relativism of morality by using the slavery argument in the Bible, which is honestly an argument that has convinced me years ago, that like things are not nearly, especially in the world of religion and theology and how we get our morals, not always as objectively clear as we like to think that they are, So I enjoyed the whole thing. I thought it was great. And listen, Ben's a good debater. He had some good points, I thought, but overall, I found myself siding with Alex more and more. I wanted to reach out to him and get him on my podcast and talk, because I was like, dude, you're great. I'm all about it,
Amazing. Yeah, I met him in person in London earlier this year. It was really great.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
He seems like a really great guy.
He's nice. He's very nice.
Yeah.
Good guy.
That's cool.
But so you're doing research. What does that mean?
Well, I am the founder of a nonprofit organization called the New Evangelicals.
Okay.
And I started it in 2020, kind of by accident. I started an Instagram channel called that because I was so fed up with the direction of my faith. And over time, it kind of brought me into this world of Christian nationalism and understanding what's going on and how this functions. So I discovered Charlie Kirk a long time ago. I've always kind of followed him. But as, when the insurrection happened, things like that, I got more and more concerned. So this is my second time at AmericaFest. I've been to one of his pastor summits. I've met Charlie. We've talked for a few minutes here and there. But most people who, not most, because Turning Point's big, but people know that I'm here. Like I know the director from Turning Point Faith, him and I talk a lot. So even though we disagree strongly, I believe in good faith dialogue. I'm not one to dehumanize people, especially online, right? So that's got me a lot farther than some people who might just call this place, a bunch of fascist assholes or something, To me, it's like, well, you might think that, and that's fine. But if you want to get change done, that's not going to get change done. Because I wasn't changed by people calling me a bigoted asshole when I was a conservative Christian who thought that being gay was sinful, for example, It was stories. So now I'm trying to replicate that, but by being in these spaces. Plus, I'll do a YouTube video on this. My audience wants to know, what's this like? What's actually going on? What makes it tick? How do you read the Sermon on the Mount and then come away with like some of these positions, and call yourself a Christian, things like that. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing Charlie Kirk as a evangelical Christian, but he's using that to promote his conservative political goals.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing you as a new evangelical also using your Christianity to potentially fuel your political goals, or no?
I think that the current state in America is that you're going to have political views on stuff, right? And then I think the source is important. Um, I would say that my faith naturally shifted my perspectives in the political arena. But I would like to think, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I would like to think that my first allegiance is to the way of Jesus, and then out of that, my politics flow, right? So when Jesus says, love your enemy, I try and take that as seriously as I can. Okay, so what does that mean to love my political enemy in this case? Or, when we read, to take care of the sick and clothe the naked. Okay, how does that affect my political maybe perspectives on a global, on a national sense? Or how do I love all of my neighbors instead of just the one neighbor that maybe looks like me? So yeah, I think that's fair. Obviously, Christian nationalism is a very specific flavor of Christian thought and how it manifests in the political world. But yeah, I would say that to a degree is fair, for sure.
Would you characterize Charlie Kirk and potentially mainly this organization as Christian nationalist? And what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so I draw a lot on the work of Samuel Perry, of Andrew Whitehead. They wrote the book Taking America Back for God. They kind of wrote the first book that really took off. It was actually an academic book on their data based on the sociology. They're both sociologists. And then since then, there's people like Bradley Onishi, Anthea Butler, who have all done a lot of work kind of defining some of that. Andrew Whitehead probably has the most concise definition that Christian nationalism is a particular cultural framework that essentially wants to privilege a very specific flavor of Christian, which is usually white and very conservative, over and above all other religious traditions, so to speak. And that manifests by taking power and control in the political arena, but also depending on what flavor of Christian nationalism you're talking about. You can think about like the Seven Mountain Mandate, which is more of the I'm going real deep here, but since you want me on,
sure,
since we're talking, there's the New Apostolic Reformation. That's the Lance Wallnews of the world. So they would say that we have a God-given right to rule over the seven spheres of influence: business, government, academics, etc. So Christian nationalism, that's what we're talking about here. And I would say that as far as Turning Point goes, 100%, they are definitely pushing that. Charlie is groups or people like Sean Foyt, who I'm not sure if you know who he is. Do you know who Sean Foyt is? Oh man. So Sean Foyt is, he came out of, do you know Bethel Church?
No.
Yeah. So Bethel Church, that's okay. When you're an evangelical, this is all like, how do you not know? But you're not evangelical, right? Bethel Church is a massive church in Redding, California that makes a lot of worship music that a lot of churches play, like millions of churches play. Sean Foyt was a worship leader out of there years ago. He made a run for Congress in California. It failed. When the pandemic happened, he started this tour called Let Us Worship. So he would take his guitar around the states, having these huge mass gatherings, these huge, no mask, don't tread on me gatherings. And so someone like that is a big fan of this work. Turning Point works with them all the time. They also have Turning Point Faith, which is like their faith organization, their faith arm, right? And they're working with people who are up and down the Christian nationalist spectrum. Rob McCoy, who's essentially the pastor for Charlie Kirk, huge Christian nationalist. You have people even here like William Wolfe, who is in more of the what we call Reformed or theonomy camp, who would argue that Christians like him need to be writing the rules and laws and rewrite the Constitution. Shitting you. Doug Wilson, who is out of Moscow, Idaho, pretty big name in some of these spaces. I interviewed him before, and he told me straight to my face that he wants to see Christ is Lord written into our Constitution before he dies.
Huh.
Yep.
Oh.
So definitely not an exaggeration when I say that there are people out there who really don't believe in religious freedom. They believe in their religion being exported and the cultural norm, and we all have to assimilate into it whether we like it or not.
Yeah, I guess part of my goal here is to think about the political philosophy underlying basically all the United States political system.
Sure.
I'd like to keep it separation of church and state, ideally.
Amen.
So this is all good stuff. So if this organization is pushing towards aligning the church and state, that would be a bad idea in my mind.
Well, think about what Lauren Boebert said.
Yeah.
Or I think it was earlier this year. We're at the end of 2023. But she essentially said that government should not direct the church should direct the government. She said that separation of church and state is a joke. And that's a big, if you walk around this place, you'll hear at some point someone say how separation of church and state's been weaponized to keep the church out of influencing the state, yada, yada, yada. So, I mean, some people, sometimes when they first meet me or they hear some of our content on our stuff, they go, you're exaggerating, but it's not hard. All you have to do is play the clips. All you have to do is say, here you go. Like, I'm not exaggerating what they're saying. So this is, make no mistake about it. I mean, this is all about who controls what. And for a lot of people, I'm not going to say every single vendor here or every single person here believes this, but as far as the ethos of what Turning Point is pushing, Christian nationalism is the fuel that then pushes the car of their, I call it far-right politics, because we're not even in the world of conservatism anymore. Mitt Romney, I'm not sure if you heard Charlie's opening speech, Mitt Romney's a rhino. That guy ran for president on the GOP ticket a decade ago, less than that, or a little bit over that. So you can see how far people have come from what is just standard conservative. I mean, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger are very conservative on abortion, on a lot of things I would disagree with. But they understood that what happened on January 6th was really bad, that the election wasn't stolen. So I tend to call these spaces far right because I don't want to lump in everyone under that umbrella of conservative, even though people like Charlie, for example, are very adamant about remaking, which he said yesterday on his opening speech, remaking the GOP. So it's really a battle for the GOP right now.
Yeah, I'd love to have a kind of framework in mind to judge how extreme people are.
Yes.
Maybe on like a 0 to 10 scale. And if like 10, how could we define the 10? Like theocracy with a Christian prince type of 10?
Yeah, we can get there for sure.
So let's say that's a 10, that's where people want to be.
Yeah.
If they were 10, that's where they would want to be.
Yeah.
If 0 is like, I happen to be a Christian, I happen to be patriotic.
Yes.
I'm pro all the liberal, things we have in our Constitution with the separation of church and state and all that. Keep all that. That's great.
Yeah.
Is that a 0, or could we even be more charitable than that? If that's a 0.
Yeah, I think that's like a fair level. What's tricky is Christian nationalism, like anything, is not monolithic, right? You're going to have different groups with different values and perspectives. Like I said earlier, that the Doug Wilsons of the world who want to rewrite Christ is Lord in the Constitution, that's not every Christian nationalist. I'm not sure if Charlie would want that in the Constitution, for example.
Yes. So if the 10 is the Christian prince theocracy,
yeah,
where would Charlie be on that 0 to 10 scale?
I think we're definitely in the 7/8.
7/8 here.
I think so.
Okay.
Because I don't want to. I've never heard Charlie or anyone really from Turning Point be like, we have to make the Bible the legal framework that we advocate for. But what I would say is that he would say is that we have to advocate for biblical values, air quotes, right? And that that is code word for our conservative ideals.
Using public policy, like
Yes.
teaching the Bible in public school or
I
something?
think he would support that for sure. I mean, Project 2025, which is a booth that's here, they certainly support that. I'm not sure if you ever heard about Project Blitz, but there's a whole other organization and movement that is, essentially what they do is they try and flood state legislators with different Christian nationalist laws to have them written into code, like the Bible should be taught as extracurricular or something like that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Extracurricular. Okay.
Sorry, I should back that up. Let me clarify. One of their points, I think it was in 2022, was that they're advocating for the Bible being taught as a history book, right? So, hey, you're not forced to take this class, but every school should offer this class for students to take as like world history. Now, me as a more progressive Christian, I would say, well, if you look up any of the scholarship by even conservative evangelicals, that's a really bad litmus test. But that would be something, for example, you might hear in places like this.
Fascinating. So, yeah, you're doing research on all this to make sure it is accurate. This is a 7 or an 8 scale, and if it is, we should be doing more things to potentially deal with this issue if that's a big issue.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, one thing I don't like, right? I mean, this is no secret, I accuse Charlie Kirk all the time of being a propagandist, like just spreading half-truths and whole lies. So that means that I better not be the same thing, right?
Uh-huh.
So I think it's important that, you go to events like this so you can really say, hey, I've been here, I've talked to people, I've had those conversations you can't have online, I met folks, I try to get a really wide sample of what's going on here. So that way when I'm reporting on it, I can say this was my experience, I'm not lying to you. Also, there is a difference between the average attendee of events like this and like the actual leaders of the event. I mean, I talked to a woman yesterday over at the bar in my hotel, And she was like, I'm not really conservative. I'm more independent. Now, of course, that's a lot of times I've heard is whenever I hear that, usually I hear a code word for, I'm even farther right than you would think. But like she said, I think we should have affordable healthcare in the country, especially for our vets. And I'm like, I would agree with you. That's great. So you do tend to find people who are a little more nuanced than just far right, but they will sit underneath of this and post about how great this is and how great Turning Point is. So you have to be able to kind of be here to have those conversations. So when you report on it, you can help people separate the Charlie Kirks of the organization versus like the person who's flying in for a weekend because they want the border secured, for example.
You have a YouTube channel or podcast, and you report on like evangelical issues.
Oh yeah, I mean this is what I do full time. We're a nonprofit organization. So Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, podcast, website, the whole nine.
Okay. Where can people find you?
Anywhere that is the New Evangelicals.
Gotcha.
The New Evangelicals on, again, Instagram, TikTok, doesn't matter. We're there. YouTube, the whole nine.
Amazing. Cool. Well, thank you, Tim. That was really nice.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was great.
Thanks.
Sure.
Oh. Absolutely.